As you might have noticed, I took a little bit of a break last week because it was Christmas and I wasn't home, so I couldn't really do a video, but now I'm back. And this should be every Friday from now on into the new year, I hope. This year has been absolutely crazy. I just reached 1,000 subscribers, and thank you to everyone who subscribed. I really, really appreciate it, and this is beyond anything I could have ever imagined. So I am changing things up a little bit, and I hope that I will be able to do better videos. And of course, if you have any suggestions or anything you would like to see, or anything that bothers you about the way I do it, please leave it in the comments. I would like to know. Yeah, this week I will be talking a little bit about increases and decreases, and I will do it sort of as a little bit of a workshop because I really want to show you how that looks on a diagram. One thing is to be able to increase and decrease, left leaning and right leaning and left leaning. Another thing is to be able to actually read a diagram with an increase and a decrease on it. So let's go do that. Here are some pieces where I will show you the increase and the decrease part. And here, for example, you'll see that I actually started up here with one straight cast on, and then I have increased in the same line here all the way down. And what I wanted to show you here is that it kind of looks as if you would get something like this when you're just increasing, right? You might think that what you will get is a straight line, and then underneath that straight line you will have something that bulges downwards. Now this is not actually what happens when we increase. What happens is that we jam stitches in to the next row, and it sort of deforms it. So these are raglan increases. As you can see, this would not turn into a sweater, but if we had done 2 more, it might. But I just wanted to show you that when you increase, you push. So I've been working this way, right? I've been working here, and I'm just pushing this away from each other. So these lines here, they continue upwards here, but I have a new stitch in between. So I have a hole and a new stitch starts there, and then I have a straight line of stitches going upwards, and the same thing on the other side. This is straight all the way up. They don't sort of curve or anything, they just lay flat and straight. And then we have the increase row, which is sort of distorting everything outwards. If I had started on the other side, so here, and then I had decreased, I would have the same pattern. So when you decrease, you also deform the edge, but you deform it the other way, if that makes sense. So when you decrease, you will see more here and less here. So you will get often if you have something like a picot edge or something, you will have decreases rather than increases, because as you see, increases push it and decreases crunch, if you will. And therefore you get this either way. So I could have started here and worked inwards, or I could start here and work outwards, and it would be the same. But if I want it to be bigger, obviously I'll do increases. If I want it to be smaller, obviously I would do decreases. So what is a little bit interesting is patterns where you have increases and decreases in some sort of relation to each other, and that will give you patterns like this one. So this lacy pattern is actually made up of all the places where you can see that it bevels downwards. Is that the right word? it every time you have something that goes out here, you actually have the decreases. And then every time you have something that is scrunched upwards, these are the increases. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, I think, but when you're looking at a pattern, please remember that every time we have this where there's some increases, we're going to push the fabric here downwards on either side of it. You're not going to get this piece where the increase are, even though that might sort of intuitively make sense. And every time you have a decrease, you have more stitches here and less here, and therefore you get a round thing. So I thought I would show you just the basics of how to increase and how to decrease. And every increase and decrease comes in sets, because we want, you can see it here maybe. We want one side, as I said before, these all lay straight. So we want this side to be going this way, and we want this side to be going the other way. And that's actually two different ways of, well, decreasing or increasing. If we get the whole, it's the same. It's just a yarn over, and I will show you that too. It doesn't have a left yarn over and a right yarn over, or it might have. I don't know. I don't know of any, anyways, and I've never used one. But here you can see I have my center stitch, and then I have a left and a right leaning increase on either side. And the same thing goes for this piece, that if you look at it, you will see that the decreases actually lay to one side or to the other side, and that's not just the pattern. Well, it is just the pattern, but it is because I have been working left and right decreases. Sorry, right is over here and left is over here. I'm trying. It's surprisingly difficult. So yeah, and so I also want to, afterwards, when I've shown you the increases and the decreases, I want to talk to you a little bit about how this looks on what it looks like on a diagram. So it might be that in your head this would be a row of increases and this would be a row of decreases, but actually this is wrong and this would be the right one, because we actually get more stitches. So what I wanted to show you was just how to read these types of diagrams, and especially when you're dealing with pieces that are being increased or decreased in a sort of in a way where you need the extra stitches. This is just one way of showing it. There are others, but I just wanted to show you while we do it how to actually deal with a diagram that it's not that isn't a square. Okay, so here I have a row of stitches, and I'm just going to work a couple of stitches here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I will do an increase, and I will put the right needle underneath here. So basically you find the ladder that is in between the stitches. If I go to the next one, I'll have a V underneath my stitch and a V underneath the other stitch, and then I'll have a thread in between. I have one here too. Now, to do the right leaning, I put it on like that, so that the long piece is lying in the back and the short piece is lying in the front. And then, and this is my sort of golden rule for doing this, it is a right leaning increase, because when I go into it, I want my needle to be pointing to the right. So I always have these little rules, and then you just knit it. You just put it in towards the right, and then you knit it. I always have these rules for how to do stuff, because I don't know, I'm always forgetting, and I'm really bad at left and right. So I have these sort of rules. If it needs to lean this way, towards this hand, then the needle needs to point that way. Now I'm just going to knit the next stitch to get that nice sort of spine in between my increases. And then to do a left leaning, so towards this hand over here, I go the other way, so like that. So now I have the long piece in front and I have a shorter piece in back, and I will insert my needle pointing to the left and then I will knit it in twisted. It's twisted knit, right? So the other side. And then I can just knit the rest. Now, what is a little bit interesting is that now I have more stitches, and that was why I showed you before that we need this idea in our heads, that the next row is actually going to be bigger by one in each side. So if I want to count to the same point and I want to stack them on top of each other, I need to count one more here and one more here. And of course my little line down here of numbers make no sense, but you can sort of count or calculate how many it's going to be until that. And I know of course that it's just going to be one more, but you know, if I had this in my head, let me go here, I would have a problem because I would continuously push it to one side or to the other side. So don't do this. do this. And if you have a pattern that looks like this, just know that it is going to be increased, but all of these are going to line up. So I'm just going to purl back and then I will come back and show you again how to do this. Okay, so here I am again, and I am just going to knit up until the point where I know I am going to need to do an increase. And I know it's just going to be one more than before, but I could also, as I said, count on my pattern. So in order to get them on top of each other, I am going to knit the one which I increased last. So that is going to be the extra. And then I want to do a right leaning again. So I put this on like that, point my needle towards the right and knit that. Then I will knit the spine stitch that I have in between. So that is nice and on top of itself. And then I want to put it so that the long piece is in front, the short piece is in back, and then I want to point my needle towards the left, and I want to knit that stitch. And then I can knit the remaining. And we should be able now to see, yeah, a little bit. You can see here where I increased, just as I said in the beginning, where I increased I don't get the bulge or the big, the mass of yarn. I actually get it to the sides of my increase. So you should sort of, or that's perhaps just me, I don't know. But I would think that where I increase I am going to get like a shape like this, right? But actually you get the opposite, you get it like this, because it is pushing these stitches down and it's pushing these stitches down. Okay, so I'll purl back and then I'll come back and show you how to do this with the yarn overs. Okay, so again, I will just, last time I knitted 5. So this time I know I'm going to knit 6 to get to the same point in the fabric. So I have 4, 5, and 6. So now I'm at the point again, and instead of picking up or doing anything special, I am just going to wrap the yarn around my needle. And then I will knit the center stitch, and then wrap the yarn around again. And then I will knit to the end. Now a yarn over always gives us a little hole in the fabric. Yarn overs are basically what lace knitting is made of. So you can see here where I did the other increase, where I sort of picked it up and put it on the needle. It's commonly referred to as a make one. I have these tiny holes because we can't really increase without making holes. But up here, you can't see it right now, but up here, or a little bit maybe, we will get bigger holes. And I have an example here of the difference. So this is an increase made with the holes. So this is yarn overs. You can see how big they become. And then I have another one here where I didn't really want the holes. So this is where I have picked up and done the first increase I showed you. It's still very visible, but it's not wholly in the same way, so it doesn't interfere with the pattern. So I will just purl back and then show you how big those holes are actually going to be. Okay, so I actually did two rows of it because you couldn't really see it. When it's up close to the needle, sorry, when it's up close to the needle, it's very difficult to see because it sort of distorts the pattern, but when you get down here, you can see the difference between this increase and this increase is that this creates a very big hole, which can be very, very pretty, and this creates a smaller hole, which I think is it's a good idea if you want to do sort of a continuous pattern, or if you're making something for a guy who doesn't appreciate lazy things, for himself anyway. So that is the increase, and I think the big lesson here, really, and I'm sorry to keep stressing this, but when you do increases, you are going to push the pattern away from the increase. You're not going to get the round underneath it. You're actually going to get it on top of it. Yeah. So now I want to do the decreases, and we're just going to continue working on this sample. So the decreases are a little bit different because when we increase, we can actually just create stitches. That is basically what we do, right? We invent stitches in the middle of our pattern. But when we decrease, we are in a situation where we need to, am I there now? No, here we are. We need to take 2 stitches and then we need to make them into 1. The decrease that is leaning to the right is taking 2 stitches and knitting them together. Then you get something where the stitches underneath the the needle here are both pulled to the right. And again, you can remember that you put your needle into the right? You did this, so your needle is pointing to the right. Now I'm just going to knit my spine here, and then I'm going to do the left leaning, which is much harder. So you are going to go into the next stitch as if to knit it and take it off, and then into the next stitch and also go into it as if to knit and take it off. Now you have 2 stitches here on your right needle which they're not knit. So we're going to go into them from the front here with the left needle, and then we will wrap it around here and knit those 2 together. And the thing that is left leaning here is again the stitches underneath. Oh, you can see that. The stitches underneath have been pulled to the left. So I will just... So here we are, and I have 1 stitch pointing that way and 1 stitch pointing the other way. So I'll purl back and show you one more time. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the decrease again. So we knit up until the point where we need to do the decrease. And normally I would have had a little marker there showing me when, so I wouldn't have to do this, but so when we want to do it to the right, we stick our needle in and we point it to the right, and then we knit it. And then we know that because we point it to the right, it is going to lay to the right. This is also a knit 2 together. So basically you do what you would do if you were just knitting 1, but then you go into 2 stitches instead and you just knit 2, and that makes them knit together. Now I'm going to knit my center stitch here, And then this was the one I split, so it's sort of, but it's just a demonstration. Now I want to do the left leaning, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick up 2 stitches, one by one, as if to knit, and I'm going to slip them to my right needle, and then I will put, again, now my right needle, my working needle here is pointing to the left, and that's why it's going to be a left leaning decrease. So it's going to look like this, and I can knit the rest. And if you are very observant, you'll see now that it would perhaps have been prettier on this sample if I had actually, oh, here we are. If I'd actually done it in reverse. So if I had done a left leaning, this would slant in and this would slant the other way, so that would perhaps have been better. Because right now it's sort of at odds with where the other stitches are laying, but you get the point. So it's sort of, it's going up here in a triangle, and it would have been better if it had been the other way. Because these are pointing away from the spine, and these are also, but yeah, I hope that makes sense. So yeah, let's go into the lace stitch that I showed you in the beginning, so that we can see how this can be worked in a pattern. Because normally, or sometimes you would, but normally you would want to end up with the same number of stitches over a pattern piece so that you get a square, or at least something that lays flat. This would probably, if I straighten it out, I'm going to get this bulging upwards on both sides. So basically we want to stay in the XY plane. We don't really want the set plane sticking up, or mostly we don't, but most patterns are made in a way, and this is too, in a way that you get sort of a flat piece at the end. It might bulge while you're doing it, but then it lays flat when you've done all of it. So basically every row here doesn't produce a new square out here. You just have the same number of increases as you have decreases. So there are 4 increases here and two decreases on one side. So 4 and 4. So you get the same number of stitches on top of this. And it makes it a little easier to work. To begin with, I am just casting on the 12 stitches that is needed. So 2, 4, and 12. And then I am going to do another one, just a 13th one, for a turning, because I can see here that I have a decrease at the end of some of my rows, and I don't really want that. Or at the beginning, for that matter. So just to make it a little bit easier to knit. My first row is going to be a row of purling. So I will just purl every stitch. And I should warn you here, we're now in some very big yarn, and I am using 5mm needles. That means that this lace is not going to be that pretty, because when you use the very big needles, the yarn overs have a tendency to they're not going to be as crisp, shall we say. On the next row here, I'm now on the back of my work, so the next row needs to be a knit row, but because I'm on the back, I am going to purl it. So when you purl on the back, you get a knit row on the front. If you knit on the front, you get a purl row on the back. So in order to get knit stitches on the right side, I am going to purl every stitch here. So now I just have a ridge of purl stitches down here, as you can see, and that is going to be the bottom edge. In order now to work this, I need to remember that when I decrease, for instance, I am using 2 stitches, but on the diagram it's only counted as 1, because there's just 1 on top of it, and that makes sense when we go on, but right now it's a little weird. So what you need to remember is that you're using 2 stitches here. So if you knit 1 and then do a decrease, these down here, it should have probably been in the opposite direction. So this is 1 and 2 and 3 and so on. But it doesn't really matter. We work back and forth, so these are not going to make sense half of the time anyway. But I just need you to remember that you cannot count on these numbers while you're doing the row. You can count them afterwards, and this should be on the 3 spot, and this should be on the 5, and so on. But you cannot do that while you're working, because they are representative. They are not actually... So this is where it's going to be when we're done. It's not going to be where it is when we're working it. So just to illustrate, I will show you here that I will knit 1, as it says in the pattern. I'll knit 1. Then I will do 2, knit 2 together. So I'll go in and do a knit 2 together and knit 2 together. If I started counting now, I would have 3 stitches. And that's okay, because when we have 3, we go into the yarn over. But if I counted all of my stitches, I now have 2 little stitches. So I can't really say, well, if we go 5 forward, then this is going to be the whatever is on the 5 forward. So I will just do exactly as it says, in the order that it says. So now it says yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, and then yarn over. And then I'm going to go into the slip slip knits, so the left leaning decrease. So I am going to slip 1 knitwise and slip 1 knitwise, and then I'm going to knit them together. And then I am going to slip 1 knitwise and slip 1 knitwise and knit those 2 together. And then I added the extra stitch at the end, and I'm just going to knit them. So again, if we now count, we are going to have 12 stitches, even though we increased and we decreased. And the next row is just purl, so I'm just going to purl back and return. The next row is going to be exactly the same. And you should start to see some distortion in your row down here. So I will knit 1, knit 2 together, and I know that is going to be a right leaning because my needle is pointing to the right when I do it. Then I will yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, and then yarn over. Now I have 5 stitches left, and I am going to slip, slip, and knit. Oops. And then slip, slip, and knit, and then knit. So exactly the same as we just did. And I'm sorry if that was a little fast, but you now have the pattern and you now have the way that you do this, so you should be able to read the pattern and figure it out. Now I have 4 little holes, and then I have these stitches beside it, laying in a nice way. So I'll just purl back and then I will return and we will do the final row of the lace part. Okay, so here we are, and I will show you the last part. So again, we knit 1, and then we knit 2 together. Here, and then we knit 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Then we do yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and a knit 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we have 3 stitches left, and we are going to slip, slip, and knit. And then knit the last stitch. So that is the entire pattern, and as you can see, because we knit and we increased and we decreased so that every row was the same length, we don't get the bulging up here. We get the bulging downwards. So again, we're in the XY plane, if you will. So it distorts the pattern this way, but it doesn't distort it the other way, if that makes sense. And if you continue doing this, and then there are of course 3 rows of just plain stockinette. If you continue doing this, you will get this. And the interesting thing is that it goes down here into rounds, but then up here you actually get a straight piece. So if I just continued here working back and forth, I would get a straight piece with a edge that has this nice lacy round scalloped, that's the word. I'll get the scalloped edge. Yeah. And also very interesting, these are the decreases, just as it is here. We decrease at the start and the finish, start and the end, and then in the middle I have my increases, which are just pushing on the sides here to make them bigger. But it doesn't itself get bigger. As you can see here, they're all on top of each other, all of the increases here, and they are always going to be the top part. If you have any questions regarding increasing and decreasing, please leave them in the comments and I will try to help you as best I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next Friday.